Hello, I'm Phillip Taylor from Richmond Green Chambers. I'm talking about the Human Rights Act Toolkit. This is one of a series of advisor books which the Legal Action Group publish. Now, many people will know about the Legal Action Group from its various areas of expertise covering criminal law and areas of civil law, mainly to do with housing, possession actions and so forth. However, what they've done is they've branched out a bit because they've actually produced some rather useful advisor books, and this is one of the first ones. It's been quite a good seller, and I've written a number of reviews of this particular toolkit because it suddenly became quite popular, as it actually brings together a huge amount of information about the legislation in one place, which will be of benefit certainly to both advisors, practitioners and of course lawyers who have a knowledge of the subject, which we've been forced to do, but at the same time needing that extra little bit of detail which comes with the toolkit. I've given it the title Getting on the Rights Track with this advice toolkit because that's what it does. It puts you on the right track effectively. What we've got then with the toolkit series are a number of books which basically give a passing interest to reforming areas of law, and it's always going to be a very difficult task for writers to produce any form of book covering legal matters for, say, managers, frontline staff and so on, who've got no legal knowledge to back up the way in which they carry out their particular functions. So this is where the book comes in. Now, Jenny Watson and Mitchell Woolf, in my view, have got to be congratulated for producing what is actually an excellent piece of work. It's got a concise introduction to basic human rights principles, and it doesn't actually resort to the old gobbledygook, because one of the keys with the Legal Action Group publications is the fact that they state the law in a nice, simple way, which is readily understandable both for the judiciary and also for, of course, the people who actually have to play a part in the proceedings. What Watson and Woolf have done, therefore, is to introduce the Human Rights Act to those people who may not have had much of a prior knowledge of it, but certainly have to today. Let's have a look at the contents very quickly. Helena Kennedy has written the foreword, and she describes the law in this particular way. She says it's too important to be left to lawyers. Well, she would say that, but the point is that clearly it's such an important area. It's the area that Jack Straw, who introduced it, very proud of it. Obviously it's one of the lasting legacies for the government that was elected in 1997. What I think we've got here, she goes on in fact to talk about the Act, and she says it's a positive expression of a mature society. The difficulty we've got with that is that that's a view that she has, but it's not shared, of course, by a lot of people. And it may well be that this current piece of legislation will, of course, be amended in due course. It's a highly practical toolkit, this one. And it's almost what I've described as a virtual seminar on human rights. It's got 11 chapters and a copy of the Act at the end of the book. The contents start with a fairly substantial introduction, and we have part 1, which deals with a checklist covering mini checklists of important areas that we should obviously look at. Now, the greatest asset clearly of the toolkit is, as the name implies, it's a piece of kit which gives the reader the tools of individual rights and obligations which go to make up this piece of legislation. I've certainly always found, I know my colleagues have, the continuing debate that we have over obligations of public bodies under the Act to be frankly confusing. So it's good to know that Watson and Woolf here have actually dispelled some of the prejudices, misunderstandings and myths surrounding public bodies. And I think it's very important that we at least have some idea of how the whole thing works. As I said, many practitioners and students alike have had a guarded response to the legislation, although there's been a fairly substantial introduction of it across the legal board and elsewhere. But I would say that the Toolkit is an excellent all-round statement of current principles written in what I would describe as a no-nonsense style, which will prepare you for its impact on what you do. Now, I've reviewed quite a lot of books on human rights from various different publishers, but I think this one is probably the easiest and the best guide. It's good for students, although it's primarily an advisor's book. It's a very good book for students, because obviously many have, in my view anyway, some confusion on the ideals of human rights. And as I indicated before, it will be an item which is going to be on the next general election manifesto agenda, and it's clearly an area which will be the subject of some sort of amendment, depending on whoever takes control of the country from 2010. What I would say is that this toolkit is a great addition to the working library of the professional and, of course, of the advisor layman. Obviously, it's something that is giving us new principles of fundamental rights, and the basics that we have are obviously going to be expanded in due course, but it's a beginning, and this is the best book to help you, so I do advise you to have a good read of it and get it for your bookcase. Thank you very much. Bye bye.